Let me look at that. Got it. And let me start a little PowerPoint so you don't just have to look at my face. It's more for entertainment than anything. So anyway, hold on. Now I've got distracting things on my screen. There we go. Hi, everybody. It's great to see so many Terps here. So my name is Angie Dobransky, as Angela said, from the class of 1987. And I had a different name back then, but that was a long time ago. And I know it's lunchtime on Friday, so I'm going to try to make this fun and informative and interactive. So, I encourage you to participate. So if you can take a moment and type into the chat what year you graduated, or if you're still in, so that we can kind of see who's here today. So, all right, a nice big range. Excellent. So I want it to be engaging. So, keep your cameras on so you feel like you're here with us. And I'm going to ask you to raise your hand and type into the chat and participate in other ways. And if you really don't want to do that, that's cool as well. There's no pressure here today. I really am here to just provide you with some strategies and advice for advancing your career in the digital or hybrid environment. So how many of you use the raise hand feature for this currently work in a virtual or hybrid environment? And I'm going to amend that to say, if the pandemic were not happening, if it were over tomorrow, would you raise your hand if yes, you think you're working in virtual or hybrid environment? Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to tell you my story as we go through this, because as I've long said, I have been virtual since 1995. But in building my actual career history, I believe I've been hybrid since I graduated from the university. And while we kind of are all feeling a little bit uncomfortable, not all of us, because I know I'm not, but I know people are a little bit uncomfortable in this virtual hybrid world. I think it's been around a lot longer than we realize. And there's a lot of concern about how do we grow our career, and how do we advance, and how do we be seen if we're working from home or we're not in the office every day. And I really believe that I'll give you some specific virtual strategies, but really it's the same strategies that have always worked. And I'll try to demonstrate that for you in my story today. Because the question that I repeatedly hear is, when are things going back to normal? And the truth is, normal is ever evolving, right? And things are never going back to the way they were BC, right? Or before COVID. Employees have discovered the benefits of working from home, and employers have found the same thing. Studies have shown that 62% of employees with a bachelor's degree or higher could work from home. And 79% of respondents indicated they would be more loyal to their employer if they had flexible work options. So virtual work is an essential skill for the future, and learning how to thrive, be recognized, and advance is really the key to your future success. So like I kind of hinted at it, what do I know? So I have worked in a virtual hybrid environment for a very long time. And I'm going to share with you that timeline and what I learned along the way. And then at the end, I'll give you 7 very specific strategies that you can immediately implement really to succeed in any business environment, whether that's live, hybrid, totally virtual, or whatever future format we haven't even seen yet. So we'll start with my story. Way back in 1987, I graduated from the business school and I launched my career at Woodward and Lothrop John Wanamaker in their management training program. And like many of us at the time, I put on my business suit, which had giant shoulder pads, my tinted hose, lots of hairspray, because it was 1987. I grabbed my briefcase and I went to work by driving my car to a physical location. The standard version of what everybody thinks is a live in real life career. But the reality was we had 31 locations, a buying office, 2 warehouses, an administration building, and all of these locations were interconnected and worked together to deliver our product. When I was a buyer, I operated in a central office, and I had to explain my vision for what a product would look like and how to market it, while believing that 31 stores out there in the world could understand what I was communicating, implemented it, and succeed. And in fact, my bonus depended on being able to direct the actions of virtual locations. So even though I went to an office every day, most of my work really was kind of a hybrid environment. It's something we don't always realize. Very few companies are all in one location. So the skills that we use to communicate with, 31 or 35 different locations in 1987 were the same skills that work today. I love that. Thank you, Kia, somebody that remembers Woody's. It's been gone a long time. They were clear communication, specific and precise language, the use of pictures and planograms. Remember, a picture speaks 1,000 words, but mostly relationship building. I spoke to every one of the managers out in the stores. I spoke to the people in the warehouse who handled my product. I knew the people in the administration building who paid my vendors. It was regular, very clear communication that allowed us from, one central spot in downtown DC to manage multiple locations in the DC and Philadelphia markets. It's the same skills we used then, we use today. We tested our planograms. We made periodic visits to the stores to ensure that they understood our content, our choice of language, and our communicate. When we communicate in the hybrid world, we need to be clear, we need to ask questions, and we need to be sure other people understand our intent. Our language is not as precise as we believe it to be. And in digital communication, when you don't have body language to help you understand intent, precision and confirmation of understanding is very important. So this is me in 1987 when I graduated from the University of Maryland. So we'll fast forward to 1995, and unfortunately, Woody's has gone out of business. And I decided, what will I do from here? I'm going to go work for my favorite vendor, the Monet Group. Management had told us our last day was approaching. So I called up the Monet Group and I told them I would like to work for them. And this was a relationship that I had built mainly through the phone, the fax machine, and snail mail. They were in New York. I was in Washington, DC. But our relationship was deep enough that they immediately created a position for me. And that was the day that I left the office and started working from what was then the basement of my home, with nothing more than a landline for phone, fax, and internet. Some of you have never heard this sound, and some of you will recognize it. Because that is how we connected to the world back then in 1995. So if you recognize that sound, you are dating yourself. And those of you who don't, good for you. Anyway, I managed the major department store accounts in the Washington, DC region for the Monet Group with archaic tools by today's standards. I communicated daily with our New York office, Rhode Island factory, New Jersey warehouse, accounts and peers around the country, all from the basement of my home. I want you guys to sit here and imagine the past 2 years with nothing more than a landline telephone, a fax machine, dial-up connection to connect, and rudimentary email that you couldn't even send an attachment with. We printed out things on dot matrix printers and FedEx them around the country to be able to work together in a virtual environment. But the interesting thing was we outperformed our peers that worked in the main office. And the reason, both from a sales and a margin perspective, and the reason was we had deep and meaningful relationships. We were dedicated to a common goal. We all believed in company excellence. I love these comments on these technology. I know. I have to tell you, those of you guys who are working in an office and went virtual in these past 2 years with video and Zoom and the tools that we have no idea what the 2 decades that the rest of us have been virtual have been like. The advancements and the speed of change has honestly been just absolutely amazing. But again, we performed well because we had a common goal. We communicated regularly, right? And we were all of us dedicated to both personal and company excellence. And I'll tell you, I left the office in 1995 and went virtual. And within a very brief period of time, I knew I was never going back to a career where my physical body needed to show up in the exact same location every day. The benefits of virtual work, which I discovered 27 years ago, are enormous for both employers and employees. Both save time, money, and stress. Workers are happier, more loyal, and more dedicated, and employers can hire the best talent regardless of location and reduce the cost and administration of a large office building. Once discovered, it's hard to go back. And that's what companies are finding right now. They went virtual or hybrid temporarily, and they're finding it hard to go back. One of my clients is an office in the federal government. They are planning to bring people back. And I will tell you, they are having a difficult time getting their team, who has successfully performed their job for the past 2 years, to agree. When Liz Claiborne acquired the Monet Group, they did not have a virtual model. They believed in a central office, and they really only allowed people to remain virtual for them temporarily. They were planning to fire all of us that worked virtual. But they saw our results, and they discovered that a phone line in someone's home is a heck of a lot cheaper than Manhattan office space. And quickly, that virtual work actually became the norm, not the exception in that company. And remember, this was in the 90s. This was quite a long time ago. So the future is definitely going this way. And I want to tell you that deep connected teams do occur in the virtual world, even with people you've never met. This photo that I put up here above 1995 are my peers from back in the day. And we lived all over the country and never lived together in the same office. These relationships are built through leadership, shared goals, commitment, and it has nothing to do with physical proximity. These women who never lived in the same city are still part of my life today. And we built our relationships over the phone. We loved each other so much that we actually vacationed together so that we could spend time together. And this is a picture from a vacation that we took in San Francisco. We had done a Napa Valley tour, and from the looks of this photo, we were quite a few wineries in at this moment in time. I know that people talk in the virtual world about what is missing is this social piece, this connectedness, these friendships, these relationships. And I'm here to tell you that these relationships are built by our actions, by the way we present ourselves, by the way we connect with each other. And they don't really have anything to do with our physical body. And when we transcend this thought, that is when we can really succeed in the virtual and hybrid environment, which is our topic, right? How to advance your career in the virtual world. And I want you to know that from the moment I went virtual, my career soared. I gained greater and greater responsibility, larger and larger accounts. Without ever working in the main office, I became the territory manager of the largest region in the country. There was no penalty for me as a virtual employee. The location of my physical body was far less important than the results of my work. And that is as true then as it is today. The location of your physical body does not matter. It is the results of your work. I received regular promotions and calls from recruiters. I was highly sought after in my industry. In fact, I was recruited by Liz Claiborne before they bought the Monet Group. I worked hard and honestly, I had a ton of fun while raising my child and managing my career, all from the comfort of my home. And the keys to this success were dedication to hard work, regular communication with all peers and stakeholders, sharing my expertise with peers, and expressing my ideas to those who could implement them. And this can be done just as easily in the office as it is from your basement or your hybrid or your wherever it is that you're working from. Today, I'm going to share with you how to do that. So raise your hand if you want to learn some of those secrets. So we'll do a quick fast forward as to how I got from there to where I am today. In 2007, I had my corporate crisis moment. If you've had it, you know what I'm talking about, and you haven't had it yet, it's coming. But I decided to start my own business. I became a business coach, and I converted my employee home office into the world headquarters and corporate office of my business. And I started working with small businesses. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that I started working in the basement, but I will tell you for the past 21 years, my home office has been much fancier than that. And I think that the key to successfully working virtually is that your environment does matter. I have a semi-detached property I'm building on my property that functions as an office, and the environment you create does determine your success. And I'll get into that a little bit deeper later. But I will say that my business wasn't truly virtual because I did see my clients live in their office and I drove to their offices every day. I was putting 17 or 18,000 miles a year on my car and I was driving all over town. It was exhausting and it was wearing out, honestly, both my body and my car. So this is what I looked like back in the day. This is my very first coach training when I learned to become a coach back in 2007. One of the things that we did was we played volleyball together at 6 a.m. every day. And there were, no lie, thousands of dollars on the line. There was a prize at the end and they changed the rules every single day so that it was a model for how to adapt in an ever-changing world to business. What an appropriate lesson for what has come since then. Because what we did learn and what we know now is the environment is always changing. The day I decided to become a complete digital nomad, which is what I am really today, occurred in 2012. We went on vacation to this just amazing town in the Baja California Sur Peninsula called Todos Santos, and we instantly fell in love with it and looked at each other, my husband and I, and said, we want to live here forever and ever. And my clients, they need my time, my shoulder, my support, my partnership, but they didn't really need my physical body. They believed my physical presence was necessary. And so did I. I mean, I led with it in my coaching that, I don't coach you over the phone. I come to your office. I know you so much better. I was the one who needed to transcend the need to be physically present in order to make this dream come true. And I wanted to watch the sunset in this magical Mexican town. And I wanted to continue to serve my clients in profound and powerful ways. I never want to retire. I am what I do. And I needed to make this change to allow me to do this forever and live a radical life of, adventure and fulfillment. So at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic started, I had almost achieved that. So this picture is taken in January of 2020. It's in Mexico. It's in the town where we've purchased some land to build a retreat center. I had got about 70% of my day-to-day coaching business to virtual. And I was going to work with people virtually and have groups come to me in Mexico and do for retreats and do growth sessions. And this was a test of that concept. And while I had gotten 70% of my clients virtual, the 30% that remained physical was very resistant to changing that model. And then the pandemic hit in March and immediately everybody just went virtual. And the truth is we're never going back. And the clients that were resistant initially, they agreed to give it a try. And I will tell you within the first or second session, every one of them said, wow, this is actually better. Because I can serve them more fully and completely from my home in Silver Spring or the beach in Florida, or hopefully soon the West Coast of Mexico, without the aggravation of hassle and traffic and commuting. And I have all of my tools with me and they the same, right? They're not running around their offices. They're pretty much sitting at their desk right now, a lot of them at their home desk, focusing on the work that we do together. And so we, at least in the coaching world, it's interesting to discover that the virtual model is actually, I believe, more successful than the live model. So, when you show your company or your clients your effectiveness in the virtual world, they're a lot less likely to pressure you to return to the office. I've worked virtually since 1995, 27 years now, and I've had a fantastic career in life and I continue the journey, and there's no way I could ever work in an office again. And I think I'm an expert in working virtual, and I hope you agree. So now that you know my history and hopefully learn some of my lessons, let's just kind of dive into where we're going here. And so the first thing is it starts with a mindset shift. Hybrid or virtual or digital is not new. Many of us feel this virtual world is brand new, but we're really just going back to the future. And what does that mean for the way that we work? I hope I demonstrated in my story that the world has been long more virtual than we recognized, and that the days of the steno or accounting pool where everybody worked in one office together, they're long gone. Companies have satellite offices and multiple doors and employees in varied locations. The world is more connected, we're more global, and the future seems digital. With virtual or hybrid working becoming the norm, not the exception, the benefits are too great to realize. And I'll say this, while I thrive in the virtual world, I recognize it isn't for everyone. Even back in our Liz days, we knew that not everyone could succeed in the virtual world. I have clients that are dying to go back to their offices, even as their employees make it clear they have no intention to return. Two of them are even working alone in their empty offices while their employees work from home. They have such a need to be there that even when their team has refused to come, they just show up every day. And now they manage their hybrid team while they sit in their physical office. And it works for them. But whether we love it or hate it, it's here, and we succeed by mastering it. It is possible to become invisible and overlooked while working from home, but we can also choose to thrive, be noticed, and succeed. And I'll tell you something, the same is true of working, physically in real life. We need to build our virtual work skills and our virtual management and leadership skills. We have to adapt to this new world, and we have to hone our skill to the best of our ability. So who is ready to go back to the future, whatever that may hold? I will say I recently purchased a virtual headset, and I'm really hoping that virtual reality is not the future, because that is a little bit nauseating. Anyway, so how do we thrive and get noticed in the virtual world? Some of the things are the consistently applied things we've always done, and some things require modification. Common sense, professionalism, a dedication to our craft, a commitment to excellence. These things bring results in every environment. And our first strategy, which we'll get into right now, is actually pretty straightforward. And I'm really surprised how many people missed this in the beginning of the pandemic and still do. Act and look as if you were in the office. It really is that simple. My husband jokes and says that I'm always camera ready, but what I say is I'm always office ready during office hours. It's Friday afternoon and I'm here in my house speaking with you, and I'm fully dressed for a professional day. My attire is business, so is my hair and makeup. I even have heels on while I stand here. Now, rest assured, I am not totally insane, and I will put my slippers on at some point in the afternoon. But whether you're virtual or in real life, if your office looks like this picture on the screen and others can see it, it's not helping your career. And it's not only how we appear, it is also how we behave. And one of my favorite teachings is this. If I were working in an office right now, would I be doing this? This is the question that you should ask yourself and teach your team to ask themselves. So let's try it together. So we're hungry and we want to go make a snack in the kitchen. Stop and ask yourself, if I was in an office right now, would I be doing this? Type into the chat, yes or no. Now, I'm hoping you get that right, because here's the thing. Yes, you would go get an appropriate snack if you were working in the office. If it was lunchtime or it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you were working in the office, you wouldn't go into your own kitchen and cook something, but you would go into the company kitchen or the vending machine. You might pop down to the, market that's in the lobby of the building. Getting a snack, and somebody said depends on the time, and bravo to you, you're right? Getting a snack at an appropriate time in the office is something you would do in an office, which means, of course, it's okay to do it at home. All right, so let's try a different scenario. Yes, I do also have my beverage at hand. The laundry is piling up, and you're starting to wonder, Do you think you could rotate some laundries in between meetings and tasks? So I want you to stop and ask yourself this question. If I was in an office, would I be doing laundry right now? So type into the chat, yes or no. Right. Most of you anyway got that right. You know, if you're working in an office building, there is no way that you're doing laundry during the day. And therefore, you shouldn't be doing it from your home office either. There's a lot of statistics and data on interruption of task and how long it takes to, stop and start something. So I will say from the day that I worked from home back in 1995, I worked absolute office hours in my office focused on office things. That doesn't mean that crises don't happen and you don't occasionally get the interruption. Okay, Daniel, I'll go with the as a replacement of taking to walk or stretch, because that's another good example. If you feel like you need to get up and take a walk around the block, ask yourself, if I was in an office, would I be doing this right now? The answer is probably yes, right? Because we do take breaks. So, but you've got the right thought. Think of your home office as your office and act and look the same way. You get the idea. I've long practiced this. I will tell you, I could walk out of my house into a business meeting at any moment during the workday, and it has served me quite well. And I was very surprised at some of the behavior that I saw amongst my clients' teams. I even said to one of my clients, I meet with their entire executive team, and Dina, I save that question and I'll get to that at the end. We'll do some open questions, and that's a good question that she's tapping there. How do you get your office from taking over the rest of your life day? It's, by the way, it's similar in its boundaries, and we can chat about it at the end. It's a very good question. But I said to one of my clients, I said, did you get rid of your dress code? I said, I've been, every single one of your executives who I've met with over the past couple of months, they've been wearing a sweatshirt. And I'm like, and it's fine when they're meeting with me, but like, are they meeting on Zoom with your clients wearing sweatshirts? It was kind of interesting. So something to think about. All right. So our next strategy is you have to build executive presence online. And it builds on this idea. And executive presence is valid both online and offline. And I love this chat. So anyway, both online and offline, executive presence matters very much depending on where you're going in your career. But what does executive presence even mean? We need to be professional, knowledgeable, rational under stress. We need to show our leadership abilities. There is a direct correlation between the significance of a career opportunity and the importance of exhibiting executive presence. So here's a few tips to create this. And the first one relates to the previous strategy, which is be impeccable with your appearance and your word choice. Look and act the part. And, both in all of your communications, both verbal and written, in a professional environment, speak as a professional, right? Use appropriate language for your industry, and again, appropriate for where you are. And we need to learn to speak and listen well. Good leaders are good listeners first and great speakers second. When I work with executive clients, I help them transition from managers to leaders, and I teach them to create a personal vision for who they are, what they contribute to the organization, and what they want to achieve there. And then they use this vision to guide their behavior and their management, and to encourage their team and peers to follow their dreams. It's a lot easier to manage when you have a vision for how you're managing. And it's part of building executive presence. We need to manage stress, and we need to, deal with our anxieties. We need to learn how to have the camera on while our knees are shaking under the desk. We need to learn before jumping on the call to take a deep breath and to wait, several heartbeats or hours or even overnight before responding to the frustrating email. Managing stress and anxiety doesn't mean not having them. Executive presence means dealing with them so that our pressure doesn't bleed on to those around us. And finally, it is critically important to master the technology or hire somebody to run it for you. The tools of the world have become more complicated, and we must learn to use them. This is really good news here is our learning capacity is unlimited. So type into the chat, how many of you guys think about your executive presence and how you present yourself from your home office out there in the virtual world? Or how many of you think maybe you need to put a little bit more effort here? There's no wrong answers, by the way. The next strategy is to network with peers. And I can hear you, groaning in your offices, muted, and the pushback from here. Because, whoops, sorry, it went the wrong way there. Because what everybody says to me is, networking with my peers, this is what's missing because I'm not in my office. We need this social piece. And I'm going to tell you guys, I say nonsense. My best friends to this day are people I met in the virtual work world. Virtual networking, it's not the same as in real life, but it does have the same effect. You just have to make it happen. Reach out to your peers and speak with them. Pick up the phone and get to know them. It's funny, between Slack and Teams and Zoom chat and email and regular text and all the bazillion digital ways that we talk to each other, nobody ever actually talks to each other. And then they think the social piece is missing. Voice to voice contact is surprisingly, intimate and nice. Share your knowledge and expertise and ask people for help with their and feedback in their areas. Use all the tools that you have to make connections and network with your peers. You have video, chat, social media, the telephone, mail, text, email. We have so many ways to get to know people and network and build relationships. So we just need to use them. Oh, I like good chat going, good suggestions. Do you use the blur on Zoom in professional meetings, or is it awkward? If I need to, Kia, I actually, I'm very conscious of my background in Zoom meetings. You can't see it now because I'm using the University of Maryland, but I have a very staged corner of my office that I sit in for Zoom meetings. And as a hilarious hack, I also have a picture of this wall because I do live in more than one place. And so I travel around and I always use the picture as a background. It's a joke with my clients because they never really know where I am. But if I'm in an airport or a weird place where maybe there's is a lot going on, I will just blur it. The blur is fine, as long as I can't tell that there's absolute chaos happening in the background. I think we cover that at some point, but pay attention to your background. Which a good little hack tip here is try to, whenever you're working and on a video call, try to sit with your back to a wall and the camera facing you. That way there's nothing going on behind you that you're unaware of, because we all know how hilarious that can go. All right, next tip. And so we're sort of at the Wednesday hump day, right? Number 4 of 7. And again, it's kind of an obvious one, but we miss it. And it really is, you got to show up. Our careers have many optional activities, both during and outside of hours. And if we want to advance, many of them aren't optional. To be seen, we must be where people can see us. We need to participate in the team building activities. We need to pop in to open office hours. We need to have one-to-ones with our boss or higher ups. And when we see ways that our skills can contribute to the organization outside of our jobs, we need to volunteer them. The more we show up, participate, contribute, and grow, the more we thrive, succeed, and advance. So I hope you're ready to show up now. Raise your hand and say, I'm ready to show up, in your own office, because it just feels good to move around. But showing up is the absolute key to success. Now, strategy 5 is something that I do think is missing in the virtual world, by the way, and it's the elevator moment. And the elevator moment is that unexpected opportunity to share your great idea or thought with people you randomly ride the elevator with. Like the CEO. My career benefited early on because my management position involved the shoe department in the flagship store of Woody's, which was right next to the main door. And every morning I would get there early to see condition of the sales floor and prepare for the day before my employees showed up and the store opened to customers. And the CEO came in every morning through the main door right next to my department, said good morning to me, saw my work ethic, and knew who I was. A random ride in an elevator with the CEO has launched many a great career. And these moments and opportunities are missing in the virtual world. but they don't have to be when we create them. I encourage my CEO clients to call a random employee each week and just get to know them. And the results have been phenomenal. Many insights and opportunities have arisen from these calls. And I will say the companies are more vital and connected due to this strategy. We can all create these moments, no matter our position in our career. Every Wednesday, I pick up the phone and I check in with someone I haven't talked to in a while. I randomly call people such as past clients, old colleagues, and prospects that I haven't heard from. You can also send an email with your great ideas to higher ups. You don't know if they land, but they might, or they might not. When the iPod was new and novel, I convinced Liz Claiborne to create a cover for it as a fashion accessory. And they made it under our Juicy Couture label, and it became the #1 selling gift item at Bloomingdale's that Christmas. And that success resulted from an email I sent to the division president. If you wonder how I advanced so far working from home, it was from doing things like expressing my voice, using my skill, and having the courage to do so in front of my boss, the president, and the CEO. Create your elevator moments, and it doesn't matter if you are live or virtual. Strategy number 6. Co-work virtually. There is another piece that's missing in the virtual work environment, and I call it the ability to learn through osmosis. When we see what other people are working on around us and how they're doing things, we learn from them. Best practices develop when we can kind of combine all our strengths and approaches and leverage them into group behavior. And so many of my clients have their teams co-work. They jump on a Zoom or a Teams window. Sometimes it's even just a group phone call. And they work with their colleagues in the background. So they're all working individually at their desk, but they, have this running in the background. And it is a great way to work. Like if everybody's working on their budget, they can all do that project together. Or if there's a team that's working on, the same project, and they can shout out questions, vent for a moment, ask for feedback, and they learn similarly in this the way that you do in a live office. And even if your boss doesn't encourage this, you can still, do this with a few team members. It builds connections, best practices, and relationships. The writer's hour makes a lot of sense, Candace. I've actually thought about sometimes trying to jump on with other coaches when we were brainstorming, it's nice to have the connection. The physical body doesn't matter, the time proximity does, right? Now, it's a great way to build your influence and connection, but I will tell you, when you're co-working, don't forget the camera is on. And remember strategy 1, look and act as if you're in the office, and make sure your on-camera environment reflects that. So, because I have a tendency when I'm participating in a webinar or something, I am always aware that I'm on the camera. But if I'm just sitting back watching, I will sometimes forget. And, you don't really want to forget when you're working at home that you're on camera, because anything can happen. So our final official strategy is this. It's another strategy, by the way, that is equally effective for virtual and in real life teams. Just send an email once a week to your supervisor and update them on 3 things. What were your accomplishments over the past week? What are your current priorities? And where are you challenged or could use some help or advice? This practice keeps your accomplishments top of mind for your boss, and trust me, they will love you when it comes time to write your review. And more importantly, it ensures our priorities are aligned with their needs, and it opens a channel for us to seek real help and feedback. People who follow this practice advance in their careers far more quickly than those who don't. You need to shout out your accomplishments if you want someone to see them. So those were my 7 strategies. My success, I think, is a testament to their effectiveness. Number 1, act and look as if you are in the office. Number 2, build your executive presence, both online and off. Number 3, network with peers. Number 4, show up. Number 5, create elevator moments. Number 6, co-work virtually. And number 7, report your progress. We're going to do some questions at the end, and I'll open up to chat with you and anything you want to answer. I do have a couple of bonus strategies, bonus tips to share with you. First, be an expert in something. Whatever your strength, demonstrate that and share it with your colleagues. Be the person people call when they need a little help with something you excel in. We all bring strength to any teams, and use yours to position your expertise. Next, response matters, and it's a balancing act. We cannot respond to messages all day and accomplish amazing things in our work. And we need to be responsive so people know we are there, engaged, and listening. When you can't respond promptly, let people know and when you will reply. Out of office messages work, and so does what I call training. If you always respond within an hour, people will give you an hour. If you always respond within 2, people will give you 2. Now, if you always respond within 48 hours, they may not give you that much time, and it is likely hurting your career. Again, it is a balancing act. We must master tech. And yes, I know it changes all the time. Computerization of the workforce happened in my lifetime, and I watched as some refused to learn the new technology and stifled their own careers. We have to keep up with the tools to advance in our careers, and only the very top has the ability to hire the people to run it for them. Set yourself up for maximum productivity. You know, I referenced my home office earlier. It is a fully functioning office used only for that purpose, arranged in a professional manner. I don't actually function at the same level of productivity when I'm at my beach house, where my office is in a corner of the bedroom. Luckily, I'm super productive, so even then I get stuff done. But whatever space you have, you need to take the time to set yourself up for maximum productivity. A client of mine operates an entirely virtual company and requires all employees to have dedicated workspace in their home. It is, in fact, a disqualifying interview question. Environment influences productivity, and productivity leads to success. So create the space you need to be effective, because one way or another, your boss is noticing. And finally, and I really mean finally this time, just be a rock star. It is that simple. It's the super simple secret sauce to all success. Rock stars stand out, get noticed, and get ahead. So in this virtual world, act like a rock star. Step onto the stage, be it virtual or physical. Pick up your best instrument and just nail it. And then do that all over again tomorrow. The secret to professional success is to show up every day in every environment and be the rock star that you are. So I'm Angie Dobransky. It's so great to spend time with you today. I think we've got about 15 minutes, so I will open it up. And there were some good questions in the chat, so I'm happy to answer those too. I do have an ebook that I put out on working and managing virtually. If you send me an email, I will just email it to you. So if anybody is interested in that virtual ebook, and I think you're recording this, Angela, if they watch it later, just send me an email and I will shoot you the ebook if anybody is interested in that. So let's see what questions we have, because I saw good ones coming. See, that's the challenge. If I do so much encouraging of chat, I can't see the question. Okay, 1 to 4 again. So now you think that I have that in front of me. Hold on. Well, I'll go back real quick. All right. 1 is act and look as if you were in real life. So just act as if you're in the office every single day. Number 2, build your executive presence, both online and off. Number 3, network with your peers. That's up to you. You know, they're not coming to you. And then number 4, just show up. I saw some questions about background coming up, and I alluded to that. Your background does matter. If your office is a mess or your house is in chaos, you cannot allow that to be seen. It does reflect on you, right? And I would tell you the funniest thing about the virtual world is actually easier to hide when you're in distress than in the physical world. Like there's been times where like I didn't feel well in the morning and was like an absolute mess, and I could like pull myself together enough to like step here and give a presentation like this, where if I'd had to show up physically, I might have had to cancel. Right? So it does matter. A common things people forget when they set up a professional home office. Excellent question. Lighting matters. So make sure you have a light shining on you. So I do recommend, because it is best to sit in front of a wall, if you ask me, because then you have absolute control over what's going on behind you. Lighting matters. So have a light facing you. It's terrible when people can't see you. I do regularly. I normally hide my self view in meetings. By the way, this is another good tip. If you don't know this, in the Zoom, you can hide your self view so you can't see each other on the screen when you're talking. In fact, I have it hidden right now because it's weird seeing yourself in a meeting, right? Like that's not a normal thing. And so when you hide it, you actually interact a little normally. But when you hide it, you also forget what you look like. So usually in the morning, at least twice a week, because if I move my computer or change my settings, I'll like get into a blank Zoom meeting just to understand what I look like and what my background looks like. And if I change my location, I will always get into a Zoom meeting by myself, just start a meeting, and then I can see what everybody's seeing. So the turning off the video, by the way, you'll connect with people better when you do that. It's because think about being in a meeting, because this is what happens sometimes in office buildings. Think about being in a meeting where you're facing a mirror, how weird that is. So yeah, you want to take, turning those off makes a big difference. So the other things they forget in a professional home office setup is their background. If you can't sit in front of the wall, so I'm in an office and that works great. But let's say you have no choice but to work at the dining room table while the children are doing, their homework, or their virtual school in the living room, or whatever the situation. What you forget is what's going on in the background. So you might look all great, right? You might have it all going on. And then you don't realize that, there's the children are bleeding in the, in the background, right? So be really aware. Don't forget that in a home office. And the other thing too is your sound. Like I am using, I'll show this to you guys. I'm using a professional microphone. I don't always use this. I only use this in my home office because it's kind of fancy. And I use it more when I'm presenting. But if I'm when I'm in my office in this house, I'm here all by myself. So I usually just use the computer setup. But if we're in our beach house, I'm upstairs working and my husband is downstairs working, and he's quite loud and gregarious. So I'm always using headphones and a microphone to block out whatever else is happening. In fact, Angela, when we got on, I for no apparent reason, my neighbor has decided to grind stumps right now. What does this sound like? So those are the things we kind of forget about. Lighting and sound do matter. Pay attention to what's going on in the background. And then if you turn your self view off, which I really think you should, you'll be better on camera if you do remember to periodically check yourself, because you will forget what you look like, which is also the danger of when you're co-working or something. You forget that you're co-working and all of a sudden you're doing some crazy thing you wouldn't want anybody to see. Nothing terrible, but you know what I mean. How comfortable is everybody in the digital virtual world? Are you like, I love it and I never want to go back to the office, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going in this direction and I'm really terrified because I don't know how to work from home? I do think it's an essential skill. I mean, there are, team remote. There are some jobs that require the physical body.
Angie, Holly had just asked about standing, and I know that's something that we talked about earlier. Yes. Do you want to address that question?
So I'm standing right now. Just that standing is a good question. Whenever I'm presenting, so if I was presenting to you, I do stand. You present better this way. Your voice comes out stronger. Throughout the day, I mostly sit, but I have, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing, but I have a thing. My desk moves, so you can probably see this. I can go down and up. So I always present standing. I always, and I go up and down. I see the teleprompter. I will sometimes use a teleprompter. This is a really interesting thing on the teleprompter with presenting. I'll tell you, my general style, and I've been speaking publicly for years and years, my general style is that the way I do a presentation is I spend a good deal of time thinking about it, and then I outline it, and then I put together a slide presentation. And while I'm putting it together, I'm crafting the presentation in my head, and then I deliver it. And so one time I was doing this really important presentation, and so I was practicing it, and I practiced it in front of my mastermind groups. And one of the guys in the mastermind group used to be an actor. So he said, let me give you some feedback. If you were to script that, you would be a lot better. Because you're great, but you'd be better if you scripted it. And I said to him, this is not my process, right? That's not the way I do. I've never written out anything in my life, but I figured out a hack for that. So what I do now, I do my same process, and then I record myself giving the slideshow, that first run through that I do. And then I use Google Docs or something to transcribe it. And from that, I create a script, and then I practice it with the script. And I will tell you, it is much better. It is much better. I thought I was hurting my career when I worked from home and everyone was else. Yeah, Dora, I think everybody believes that, right? Like if I say I need to work from home and they're all in the office, I'm missing out. And you can be missing out, right? Because you can, but you don't have to be. It's, you call your peers, you connect with them, you put your voice in there. Let's see, Christina, you feel like you're more productive working from home. People are more productive working from home. Here's some very interesting statistics. When you work from home as an employee, you gain about 3 hours of time per day. So that's the time you're prepping in the morning, traveling, the lunch break, and the other side. So 3 hours you get back. You give 1 to your employer. So on average, the employees are working an extra hour per day over what they did in the office. And you, as the employee, have 2 additional hours in your day. So everybody's happy, right? And as long as you're not, now I'm telling you to network by picking up the phone and chatting with people, right? But you're not really doing that all day. So as long as you have a good environment at home, you're very focused. How do you feel about a blurred background versus a photo background? I think either are okay, Steve, but I think a professional photo background looking like you're in an office is a touch more professional than the blurred background. And again, I think the blurred background is fine, but when you have a blurred background on, I do know you're blurring it. When you have an office looking thing, even if it's a picture, I'm not really sure of that. So I might just think that you have a really cool house, right? Right. So yeah, Candace, I worked harder during the pandemic. Yeah. So that the sixth sense that you pick up on person that doesn't come through online, that's a transcendent mindset, by the way. This is what everybody says. We don't connect as deeply. We're missing that piece, right? And honestly, I've been virtual for a long time. So I miss, I don't feel the same way anymore because I know how to connect in this world. But I'll tell you an interesting thing. I dated my husband for 10 years before we got married. And despite the fact that everybody thought we lived together, we really only saw each other like on Friday and Saturday nights, right? And because I was raising my child in my house and he lived in his. And much of our relationship was built because we talked on the phone every day. You know what I mean? And the connection, right? When you talk to somebody on the phone, that's way different than, particularly somebody of the opposite sex, right? That you have an attraction to, right? The phone is conversation, right? In person, chemicals start to happen and it's in a different way. So it is different, right? To network and build connection. But if you just think of like, look, I'm just going to talk to this person. I'm going to act like they're there. When I'm on Zoom, I don't feel like I'm talking to you guys like from my screen, like I'm here with you, right? And it comes through, I know, in the way that I present, right? Like I think you probably feel like I kind of feel like I know I'm here with you. I'm talking to Angela, right? I'm not like on a video screen. I know we're almost out of time, so I'll tell you the funniest piece of this whole presentation is this. Back in the day when I worked for Liz Claiborne from the basement of my house, we used to all have a regular saying that we were